Greetings, my people. Today is Wednesday, January 28th, 2026. The time is, what time is it? 11:03 a.m. And I titled this, How TikTok Being Sold Helped Me. And I'm going to try not to be long. Even though I always say I ain't going to be long, and I end up, kind of being long. But the first thing I want to say is therapy taught me how to two things: identify and be honest with my emotions and what I feel. And in my opinion, I think a lot of people are in denial. Some know it and some don't. But in me saying a lot of people are in denial, a lot of people are in denial with what they feel, or they rationalize what they feel or what they don't feel. Let me get my microphone a little bit closer. They rationalize what they feel or what they don't feel. And one thing for me, my therapist was able to help was the ability of me understanding what exactly it is that I feel, right? And with that being said, understanding how mentally draining not only social media can be if you consume a lot of content, but TikTok in particular. Because I would always say, anybody know me, I would always say, man, TikTok is an insane asylum. Yo, TikTok is an insane asylum. And the reason I say that because this goes for any social media, I feel, but I think it's worse, and I think it's kind of on steroids. It's on the Labelco, allegedly. It's allegedly on the LeBron James juice, meaning we've always had certain issues, right? We've always had misogyny. We've always had feminism. But I feel like in the TikTok puts it on steroids, right? Because there's a healthy pocket, but there's an unhealthy pocket. I remember even seeing a young sister by the name of Rizzy on a lot, or I didn't see it personally, but hearing about a young sister named Rizzy unalive herself, right? And I don't think how because it's a rat race. Everybody trying to chase the bag per se. And whenever you're trying to chase something, like I'll see the dudes that subscribe to the stuff, they say, man, I don't chase these hoes. Man, I don't chase these hoes. But you're chasing the bag, right? And whenever you're chasing something, that means it's getting away from you, or it's not putting itself in a position to be attained easily, right? Right? And we know nothing comes without hard work. That goes without being said. But I want you to understand when you're saying, I'm chasing something, I'm chasing something. That means you're always in a rat race, right? I see old boy Anton Daniels always wear a hat that says bag chaser. And to me, that puts him in 304 category because we always say, man, these 304s, man, these hoes are always out the bag. So that puts him in that. Does that put him in um hustler mode? Not in my opinion, right? That puts him always in chasing something, right? And I'm gonna get to the point of what I mean. But TikTok has a lot of unhealthy pockets. Like the unhealthy pocket of man bashing, the unhealthy pockets of women bashing, the unhealthy pockets of decentering children, decentering males, decentering females. All of these things over a time can take a toll on you. You're either going to reject these pockets or you're going to align yourself with these pockets. And I would see males and females that would follow me and I would follow back and I would look at their lives. And their lives would always be the same repetitive things. Black men, they always kill me. It always was the males that got me that said black men hate black women. All black men are pieces of shit. I expect it from the feminist energy, but when it's the male content creators that center themselves around women or telling females what they want to hear, they always say stuff like they always say inflammatory stuff like all black men hate women or black men are the worst on the planet while being black men themselves, right? While being black men themselves, they're a group in all black men. And they don't and honestly, they don't understand how insane that sounds. To say all black men are criminals, and I never even seen the inside of a jail cell. I never even been in the back of a police car. And then they'll say, well, here's the insane part. Well, you know what I mean. And I think we don't understand how much really nuance or like choosing your words wisely matters. Society always wants you to choose your words wisely when it comes to talking about things like white supremacy, uh, anything, males or females that get offended and say, "I'm not those type." Why are you grouping all of that? Wow, they can simultaneously group all ladies in one category, right? And I don't think they understand, but TikTok has a different way. And then to see these new guidelines and see these new guys and understanding how they were talking about ICE were supposedly, it's no supposedly, but building this 24-hour surveillance thing, right? Right. And I sense something more sinister and diabolical will come from that, right? And this is for my people that subscribe to the this ain't our fight. We gonna sit back because we've been trying to tell them for years. We've been going through this for years. Absolutely. All those things can be true. Check all those boxes, right? But when you tell yourself this not your fight, you don't understand the battle. Like because the thing, and I made a short talking about the Black American hustle. And no, I'm not saying calling yourself a Black American is a hustle. What I'm talking about is the mindset and the separatism that you subscribe to. You subscribe to alienating quote unquote immigrants. You subscribe to speaking on Black Americans as if your Black American status makes you something super in this country. While never even understanding, I think you're forgetting pockets of what it's like to be Black in America. The same thing you're trying to say, it comes across like you forgetting what the fuck you're talking about. And what I mean, you say like how they have sold you this snake oil that you say, look at how Africans talk about us. Africans come to this country and think they're better. Again, two things can be true. We can check those boxes. That some Africans can come to this country and think that they're better. Some. Because here's the fuckery on the field. You don't want them to group Black Americans, or you want them to say, I saw a video yesterday of Black American females calling ICE on quote unquote immigrants. And if that's not the most Karen shit, there's a movie that was on BET, and I think it has a chick that played in 8 Mile, the white chick. I think her name is Taryn Manning, and it's called Karen. And in that film, it showed, and in that movie, it showed how the white Karen walks around and criminalizes everybody. It shows how the white Karen calls the race soldiers on a group of young black men that just simply minding their business. See, you cannot like how these quote unquote immigrants get down. You cannot like, saying their quote unquote attitude. But when you call the race soldiers on them, when you call these cold race soldiers on them, you're doing the same thing that when they call the race soldiers on black people in a situation. You never know. It could go cool, but it could get out of hand just like that. To watch what's going on up there in Minnesota and isolate yourself and say, that don't matter. That won't affect me. Fuck them people. I can't understand that. I can't understand that. Am I saying run to it and be the savior? No. But what we also have to understand, much like voting, we have to understand people's choices. I'm not calling a person a coon or a raccoon because they choose to go out there and protest. However, I will call you a raccoon if you forget about your people altogether and you've never even said anything about your people and you run out here to save these people. Or you make it seem like what's going on out there now that white people are taking shots to the neck and white people are being quote unquote unalived. You make it seem like now this is something more sinister. Now you realize, and now you want to advocate, and now you want to talk about, and then you want to talk about how black people do each other. Then I'll call you a raccoon. If you say, well, what about black people being unaliving each other for years? Then I'll call you a raccoon. I don't think everybody that voted for T Rump is a sellout. See, sometimes we go from one extreme to another. Sometimes we go from one extreme to another, and we want to indict and we want to call everybody the same thing. You gotta understand. You gotta let people do what they. Just like it's your right to rest and not do nothing, and it's your right to say it's not your fight. But what makes you think you can speak for everybody and tell everybody that it's not their fight? Let people do what thou wilt, because this is why white supremacy will forever reign, because it's global and they understand their power is in their connectedness, and they have one band, one sound of white genetic survival. We ain't understanding because we still caught up. We still this late in the game, and we still talking about you. We ain't black. I had a gentleman that come on my live a couple of days ago, and he just couldn't sit and chill out and be cool. I had a gentleman that comes on and said, and he's a Morris brother, and he just couldn't sit still without beating over my head. Stop calling myself black. We still think this old talk has some type of impact. You still think these dirty race soldiers and these dirty white folks are doing what they doing because you call yourself black? Y'all don't understand. And so I had to get up off of TikTok, and I think it being sold is a blessing in disguise. Some people, if you know, you know. If the people that know, I think it's a blessing in disguise. Do I feel like these people have been targeting us, and social media has been surveying us for years. That's why a good documentary or a good film is called The Social Dilemma, and it shows you how it works. So I think sometimes, much like that TV series called WWE Unreal, I refuse to watch it because I'm such a wrestling fan, and I don't want it to mess up my reality of how I look at wrestling. Do I know wrestling is scripted? Absolutely. But I don't want to mess up the fantasy. I don't want to mess up my imagination. I don't want to mess up how I see things. And that can be applied if you know something is a fantasy and you just want to live in that bubble for a second. But I think when it applies to your life and your survival, you got to come up out of that bubble. So sometimes people don't want to understand that they have been surveying. But I think TikTok is now on the juice. It's on steroids. And I think if you make quote unquote safe content, then you'll be okay. But in my opinion, I think it's also just another way to identify who's quote unquote radical. Because what we're watching, we don't understand. When I say you are Americanized, when I say, okay, I grew up in America, I would be considered an American, right? I ain't got no quarrels with that. But when I say you are Americanized, that means that means you have been socialized. That means your input, your throughput, and your output all breed America. So you find it cool to call everybody else uh, immigrants and tell them to go back to their country. Just like when white folks feel some certain way, they say, "Well, why don't you go back to that? Where the hell you come from?" Remember years ago when what his name was Fuzzy Zeller. When Tiger Woods was coming out, and he was whooping everybody's ass as a young man, and they caught up with, I think his name was Fuzzy Zeller. If I'm incorrect, please correct me. And they caught up with him, and he says, "Well, we won't have," and I'm paraphrasing. "Well, we won't have chicken or fried chicken or whatever the hell they eat," because that's how he see black people. The most dangerous place you can be is in white people's imagination, because you're dealing with people that is extremely insane. So there are some wherever they are. I ain't just gonna go out my way and look for them, but there are some that see things clearly. But for the vast majority, there it's a spectrum. You have moderate, and then you have just straight up severe. And the ones that severe, they see you through the lens of like how MAGA see things. Notice MAGA don't see nothing in reality. Why they don't see anything in reality? Because their quote unquote leader doesn't see anything in reality. Why is ICE so radical and not listening? Because their leader is radical and don't listen and lawless. See, this is what we got to understand when we go to talking about these damn having people to be your leader. You follow their mindset. On a Rudy Poo level, LeBron James or followers are just as insecure and crazy as he is. They're obsessed with controlling narrative. And this is how we can understand narcissism on a level, since everybody want to use that word. Because Donald Trump, LeBron James is a breadcrumb to how Donald Trump is. But I do think they're on the same spectrum of narcissism and insanity. It's just Trump has the military and LeBron just has a bunch of crazy ass basketball fans that repeat everything he says. Notice the psyche between MAGA and bronzesexuals are the same. But like I said, it's just on different spectrums. They're just dangerous to basketball players. They're just dangerous to basketball careers and um, how people see sports. But over there on the MAGA, they are a danger to society. That hypocrisy, that hypocrisy which MAGA stands on, what happens when that hypocrisy signs law and says what people can have these things and what people can't? So when they go to screaming for gun control, it's not they want to control them all together. They want to control who can have access to them. And if you agree with him, you can have them. If you don't, you can't. Why? Because he's the law and he says so. There's no facts. The reason I don't argue with Malcolm because is I might as well argue with this coffee cup to my right. I would get a better understanding from the coffee cup because I know the coffee cup don't can't speak back and don't have a sense of reality. But when these people think that they are the civilizers, is that white man's burden. When these people think that they are the civilizers, when these people think that they are the same people, that's when the problem kicks in. And I had to pull back from TikTok because, and I just got up out of there, and I think that was like the best time. I have a good friend, and her and I were discussing, and she went on her hiatus a while ago, and I'm able to be more focused on things that I should be. Like I said in the beginning, being honest with yourself and being honest with your mind, and that's the best thing you can do for yourself. That is the best form of therapy, being honest with yourself. Being honest with your habits, being honest with your addictions, same thing. Being honest with your thoughts, being honest with your emotional state, being honest and being clear with yourself. But if you always in denial about how you feel, some things are so simple to they're just that. If you're in denial, it's just that you're in denial. You're just in denial, right? But once I began to understand, like my habits weren't always healthy, my scrolling habits, what they would call doom scrolling, I participated in that. I think sometimes we like to look at ourselves from especially those that think we're conscious and we're quote unquote, I don't like to say woke because that's so bland. But people that have a dope level of knowledge, I'll say that. Sometimes we can preach from the mountain as if our shit don't stink, or we don't make these same mistakes or things that we always pointing out for society because society, the people make up society. So when an individual gets to talking about the people in society and getting jawbone and jacking, I always ask them, or always think about this: what part does that person play in society's health or sickness? See, when you subscribe to decentering men, decentering women, being a foundational Black American, all of those are sick pockets because they don't push us. They don't push us closer to nothing. It just keeps us divided, and it keeps us in a level of psychosis and delusion. Because you in that American mindset, you think like the white man's burden, so therefore you see yourself as a civilizer. You don't even understand your thoughts aren't even the same because you don't even understand who shapes and creates your thoughts. I seen a post and they always I see a lot of these posts sometimes and they say sometimes it's good to be delusional. I don't know how I feel about that per se. I don't know how I feel about people saying it's good, you must be delusional. I think you must be driven. I think you must always dream. I think you must always be ambitious. But when you start messing around with delusion, in my opinion, it's kind of hard to go back to reality because because when you're delusional, you're not looking at things through a realistic lens. And and the people that think that they are these civilizers, whether black or white. That's why it was always Nana Amos Wilson would always say, "What does a black conservative conserve?" And I see people say, and I would always be on panels on TikTok with people, and they would always say, "Well, I am a black conservative. I am a black conservative." What are you conserving? Because what you have to understand and when you subscribe and call yourself American, a Black American, it's a shared culture. What you mean, Professor? What it is? Because we black, we had James Brown and Michael Jordan, and we always have influence. Yeah, it's cool. You can influence anything where you go because we got soul power. We got swag. So we the best at whatever we do, even when it comes time to being degeneracy sometimes. But when you see people like Sha'Carri Richardson, when you see them play for Team USA and they're holding up that American flag, the same one that's used to destroy villages with innocent men, women, and children in there. There's no black American. Carrie Richardson is a black person representing America, but she's representing America. Remember, you were integrated into their system. They never was integrated into ours. You were integrated into America. And y'all jawbone and jaw jack, and you separate yourself. And like I said, the reason white supremacy works so well because it's global and they understand their connectedness. Meanwhile, you think that you can beat something global on an isolated level just with your attitude. I ain't talking about holding hands and uniting and having no rainbow coalition, but I'm talking about understanding you being in America. As you say, you're an American. What's going on out there in them streets affect Americans. Black Americans, white Americans, Asian Americans, Mexican Americans. It affects Americans. But you have to get out of your ego and you have to get out of your issues and your need to be right to understand what I'm saying, or else it's not even gonna make sense to you what I'm saying. Because you're gonna look for a reason to argue. You're gonna look for a reason to rationalize. There's that delusion. The power has always been in numbers, which is why they separate us. But I just wanted to drop some things, and I really am. I'm really glad that TikTok got sold because it made me stick to my guns, and now I'm in a better state. So if you like what I'm saying, um, hit the comments for me, and peace.